Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. I saw a lot of feedback from many of you about the sound problems, and so I'm trying to fix that today. I think I was just too far away from my microphone, but I appreciate the feedback, and so I've got the microphone closer to me now. But today I wanted to talk about the 5 things that smart Ripple XRP investors are doing right now. And to me, it comes second nature to think like this, but I don't think that that's the case with most investors. Most investors, when the market goes south, especially the crypto market, because most investors aren't used to the wild swings of the crypto market, but those of us that have been around for a while, we are used to it and we know how this all works. But anyway, in order to go over those 5 things, I was going to start by talking about what I watched last night. Many of you watched it as well. Teeka Tiwari is the guy from the Palm Beach newsletter, and he did a video last night, a Q&A type thing. And he kind of covers the first of the 5 things that I think smart, not just Ripple, but crypto investors are doing right now. And the first, and probably the most important, is that smart investors in this space, or any space really, they don't look at the tiny picture, they look at the big picture. And they don't get emotional about the tiny picture and the little things going on, even if it's a wipeout day like yesterday was for the markets. What they do is they say, okay, let's look at this rationally, and this is how I look at things. Let's look at this rationally for a minute and take a step back and look at the big picture and say, does this make any sense? This tiny one-day event, does it make any sense in the scheme of things? And so the thing that triggered it is the tiny thing, okay, and that is the SEC had not rejected, but had put off for a little bit the decision on whether to approve an ETF for Bitcoin, okay? That is all that it was. If I could tell you how many news articles I have seen that were just as stupid that caused all this panic selling over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've seen China threatens to ban cryptocurrencies. I've seen that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that has tanked the market at least 3 or 4 times since I've been holding. And each time, rationally, it makes absolutely no sense that you would sell if you are educated on the big picture. So what Teeka Tiwari last night was talking about is the big picture, and they put up on their screen several articles to just kind of tie together the bigger picture, and I screenshot those articles as they were doing them. I kept taking pictures of them so that I could show you today. And so I was going to go through those really quickly. I'm not going to get in depth on any of these, but I just wanted to illustrate, and this is what you need to look at. And before I go through these, I want you to be thinking about, okay, the SEC put off a decision on an ETF, and then I want you to think to yourself, all right, let's tie all of these articles together, and you tell me what the SEC is going to do. It's a no-brainer. The SEC is going to approve it. It's just a matter of when. And if it's just a matter of when, then why in the hell are you selling, or any of you that would sell? I mean, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Those people that sold yesterday and the day before because of that, I mean, you talking about fools. I mean, unless the only caveat to that is if they did the one thing that all of us have told you not to do, which is to invest more money than you can afford to lose. And that is more speaking to not the fact that you will lose it if you hold on to it, because you won't, but is speaking more to the fact that if you're in a financial pinch and you're having to sell to get some liquidity in your life, that is a bad, horrible move anyway. And so, anyway, I'm going to go through these. This is the big picture, so pay close attention. The first is this article here. They showed last night why the structure of Andreessen Horowitz' new $300 million crypto fund matters. And I went and looked this up, and more or less the reason they're saying the fund matters is because not only are they investing in blockchain and startup companies, but they're also investing in digital assets themselves through this fund, and that's why it's important. Next, Thomson Reuters survey finds 1 in 5 financial institutions considering cryptocurrency trading in 2018. What that means is it's more like 3 or 4 financial institutions, because as we all know and have seen and in articles and the way these people behave, if 1 in 5 financial institutions is saying that they're considering cryptocurrency trading in 2018, that means it's more like 3 or 4, probably 5, because these people know how to lie in order to position themselves. The next thing, Stephen Cohen, this guy's worth like $14 billion. His venture capital firm's getting into crypto, and he got an experienced person in crypto to help him lead that. This guy is no dummy. He knows what he's doing. A billionaire. Here's another billionaire, Marc Lasry. I'm personally investing around 1% in Bitcoin. Okay? This is another guy who is a venture capital guy. No dummy. This is Mike Novogratz. I've talked about him before. It's almost irresponsible to not invest in Bitcoin, billionaire. Now, these people, just because Bitcoin is the one that gets most of the media attention, the word Bitcoin and crypto are kind of interchangeable in most of these articles. But you mark my words, just from experience, even though all money temporarily right now flows through Bitcoin, it will eventually find Ripple XRP, because there's no smarter digital asset investment to be in. But Bitcoin will benefit too. This tide is going to rise. All of the ships are going to rise with this tide, at least in the short run. And the winners and losers will be determined more over a 2 to 5 year period. And I think there will be a pretty large handful of winners, and there's going to be a massive amount of losers. But if you're in the top 10 or 15 cryptocurrencies, in the mid to short term, you're pretty safe anyway, because they're all going to do really well, in my opinion. Next, same guy, Novogratz. Cryptocurrency market cap will hit 800 billion in the next 12 months. All right, these are all very, very educated, wealthy people. These are people on the front end of finance that are saying these things. Goldman Sachs' new CEO, David Solomon, is keen on Bitcoin and crypto. I bet he's keen on it. There's no telling how much money they're throwing at this behind the scenes. One firm is way ahead of Wall Street on Bitcoin. This was just an article about, I think it was Susquehanna, another hedge fund that had started investing ahead of many of these other companies. Wall Street's crypto king says regulatory clarity will jumpstart institutional investments. This has kind of been the theme of this year. Regulatory clarity is going to come in over the next few months or so, and as that happens, everything will do a lot better, and everything's going to take off. State Street eyes a move into Bitcoin custody. State Street is the world's second largest custody bank. This is one of those that will give tremendous legitimacy. Now, they didn't pull an article up about this, but one thing that Tika said last night that I found very interesting. He said that, and I showed you an article recently about how Northern Trust is getting into the custody. I didn't realize this about Northern Trust, but he said from his Wall Street experience, he said that Northern Trust is one of the most reputable, largest custody-related companies on Wall Street, and they are old money people. And he said he never thought that this soon that the Northern Trusts of the world would be getting into this. And he said the fact that they are is just amazing. And he said to just get ready and strap in. Okay, now let's see. Moving on. This was another one they showed. a $1 trillion money manager is looking to put crypto into some of its portfolios. And this was about another big one, Wellington Management. Okay. China, world's third largest bank, issues farmland mortgage loan on the blockchain. So if you can imagine, right now we're just talking about investments, but imagine how this is all going to change the way we borrow money and the way we do real estate and closings, and the way, attorneys are huge middlemen. Imagine what this is going to do to the legal field. Attorneys have inserted themselves as middlemen for hundreds of years, and a lot of what they do is going to change. When you imagine the titles to homes being on the blockchain, so that we don't have to go and have title searches done by an attorney's office every time there's a real estate closing. What's coming is so massive that people really don't understand what's coming. This is going to be so massive it's not even funny. Okay, let's see. And I think this is one of the last ones. This was something I don't think I mentioned, but it was something that happened when the Winklevoss Bitcoin ETF recently was rejected for the second time. There was a dissent by the SEC commissioner. The fact that there's a dissent by one of them lets you know it's coming. It's just a matter of who it's going to be awarded to first. And if I've got my money out there, my money is on the big boys like the Goldman Sachs or whoever they designate they want to have get these ETFs first. But like I told you in a video a couple of days ago, remember you've got other countries in this. The United States is not going to let Canada and some of these other countries come to the table with ETFs. And this is a very important point I want to mention right now that you may not understand. An ETF, here's the reason that these ETFs are such a big deal. And I can't remember if I mentioned this to you. The ETF, the second that one of these ETF gets approved, we have had right now, there are currently Bitcoin indexed funds. There's a lot of investors that are investing in Bitcoin, but they're not investing through these hedge funds directly into Bitcoin yet. What's going on is they are investing in an index that's tracking the up and down percentage that happens in Bitcoin on a daily basis. The difference is, and the reason these ETFs are so huge, is that if you're sitting there and you physically own one Bitcoin, say, well, there's supposed to only be 21 million Bitcoins. Well, an ETF, when they say you're buying into a Bitcoin ETF, you are literally buying the ETF. The people that manage the ETF are physically going out and buying physical Bitcoin. That is huge. It is massive. And that's the way it's going to be done with all these digital assets. But there's one other thing I wanted to mention that applies not just to Bitcoin, but also applies to Ripple and all of these others. And this is a natural part of owning cryptocurrencies, and it's part of the reason that it's one of the many reasons that it's going to be so huge. Many of you that are listening right now have done this exact same thing. I know people who have done it. I know people who had Bitcoin, who they've told me they had Bitcoin on a laptop and they just can't find their key anymore, and they cannot access it and never will be able to access it. Tika Tawari last night, you'll have to, don't quote me on this, but I'm almost positive he said that even though there's supposed to be only 21 million Bitcoin in the ever made, okay, he said that there's actually only going to be, I think the number he used was 11 million. And what he said was, that many owners of Bitcoin have already lost their keys, never to be found again, which takes the supply down to a level. And this is all about supply and demand in terms of to me, what was originally appealing about this was the idea that they couldn't make any more of it. It makes Bitcoin and a lot of these digital assets deflationary. And Imagine that you own 10 ounces of gold, and there are supposed to be, this is not a real figure, I'm just making this up. Imagine there are supposed to be 21 million ounces of gold out there, and you own 10 ounces of gold. And then all of a sudden it's found out that actually they calculated it wrong, and there's not 21 million ounces of gold, there's only 10 million ounces of gold in the world. It was just an error. What happens to the value of your 10 ounces of gold? That's a no-brainer. It's obvious. Okay, same for Bitcoin, same for Ripple. There are keys being lost every day in this country, and there's no telling how many Ripple keys have been lost or Ethereum keys have been lost and never will be found again. This is an amazing part of this that's not even talked about too much, but it's so huge. That can't happen with, say, Apple shares or the other investments out there. That's not something that's happening. But with this investment, we have a finite amount of these, and it can become even more finite. And that's something that's very rarely even talked about in this whole thing. Okay, I've got one or two more, I think. Institutional investors swap Bitcoin futures for physical BTC on Wall Street. See, this is going to be a trend too. Not just institutional, but retail investors. These people are going to realize they don't want to own futures or some indexed fund. People are going to they're going to say to themselves, I want to have one of those 21 million Bitcoins. I want to have that physical Bitcoin. And this will be a thing, and it really already is. I want to. I mean, even though I'm an XRP guy, I'm probably going to own at least one Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin was first through the door, and because there's a finite amount, and because that's what Wall Street is obviously going to sell first. But make no mistake, I've seen it happen over and over and over. People that buy Bitcoin, they go through the same mental exercise that I went through when I bought XRP. And that exercise is they take a step back and say, okay, well, now I've got a Bitcoin. But doesn't this XRP thing make a lot more sense for a lot of reasons? And they say, well, it's a lot cheaper I could get a lot more XRP than I could of Bitcoin. They go through that mental exercise too. Okay, going on. Then this MasterCard has a new patent that could allow Bitcoin transactions on credit cards. Now, this I find, Tika actually said, he said that MasterCard was talking about how talking down Bitcoin not too long ago, and meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're creating a patent so that we can put Bitcoins on credit cards. So make no mistake about it, these digital assets, and it could very easily be using the Interledger protocol by Ripple. They could use the Interledger protocol to allow you to transact in multiple different digital assets across these credit card platforms. And XRP, Ripple itself is working, I believe they're working with MasterCard if I'm correct. I know they're working with American Express. Easily that we could be involved in that. This is the final slide, and this is huge. I want you to see this and see it good. What he did is he totaled the money, all of the money that he sees that could potentially come in to the market. He's just using Bitcoin because that's what he's talking about on this, but it illustrates the point. Banks, institutions, hedge funds, and pensions. And what he was making the point is, he said, well, let's say 1% flows into 1% of the money from these things flows into Bitcoin. It'd be 445 billion. And he's just giving you the figures on what a Bitcoin would be worth in that scenario. Well, I think far more money than this 44.5 trillion is. I think that total figure will be in all cryptocurrencies here in the next 5 years, and I think XRP will get most of it over a period of 2 or 3 years. In the short run, I think Bitcoin will benefit from a lot of it, but it'll all sift down. Kind of like the Connect 4 game that my kids play. You'll drop the coin in the top, which is Bitcoin, and it'll eventually find its way into best coin with the best use case, which is XRP. Now, I wanted to talk to you further about the title of my video, which was the 5 things smart Ripple XRP investors are doing right now. We just covered, I went over looking at the big picture with you and investing unemotionally. Okay. The next thing that a smart investor is doing right now, and when I say smart, I mean this is what I'm doing. And I actually spent this morning doing part of this, and I'll go over that with you here in a minute. The first is buying. The first was looking at the big picture. The second is they're buying. If prices are down ridiculously like this, the smart people are buying. I bought some yesterday. Okay, I'm not. Anytime I see complete irrational movements is when I buy. And I have a good position in everything that I'm in, but I will continue to buy. If I see stupid, I'm buying. And that's a good quote for you to take away from this video. When I see stupid, I buy. And yesterday was very stupid. Okay, the third thing that smart people are doing, and this is just in the overall while the market has been down, they are securing. Okay, I spent this morning securing many digital assets for other people, trying to help. I helped some of my friends, but working with the Ledger Nano S to secure the assets, because to keep hackers from being able to hack off of an exchange, and that's the Ledger wallet. That's what I was actually dealing with this morning. And in fact, the Ledger people, I'm hoping that they'll work out the software so that the software is a little more user friendly. They just created the new Ledger Live software, and what I'm waiting for is the ability to put multiple. You can do it with multiple different ones, but you're still having to use on like some of the different assets like Tron and Stellar and some of these different assets. You're having to go and use their site or their software and different things. It would be so much easier if all of them were pulled into just the Ledger Live software, which I'm sure they're working on. But right now, Ripple XRP, you can do through their software. Next, securing. So my point there is that instead of having your assets on all of these sites, the Binance and the Bitstamp and the Uphold, Coinbase, getting your digital assets secure on the Ledger wallet. And all of you know, I say it every time, go in the description of my video, you will find a link to Ledger wallet and you can go get one. Do it today, don't do it tomorrow, because it's the safest way to store your digital assets, and you can do it offline. Okay, the fourth thing that smart investors are doing right now is working on their exit strategy. And when I say exit strategy, I mean, how are you going to get out? Physically, how are you going to get out? Or did you go in through Coinbase? Did you go in through Uphold? Well, have you given it any thought how you're going to get out? Because all of these digital asset exchanges have different policies on how much you can take out. You have to get verified, which means uploading. It might be like Binance, I believe, was uploading passports or driver's licenses and different information which approves you to be able to move larger amounts of money out at a time. Okay, so you can be sitting here thinking you're making all this money once the market takes off, but there's a big problem. There's a couple of big problems. The first is and trust me when I tell you this, while the market is slow, these companies have a lot more time on their hands, and their servers are not overloaded with people that are trying to get verified so that they can withdraw more money once they want to do so. And so while this market is down and while it's low and while things are slow, you need to be working on getting yourself approved wherever your exit strategy is. You may have gone in through Coinbase. I still, as much as people hate Coinbase, and I'm no big fan either, but I still say that from a volume perspective, if you're trying to move large amounts of money, until I see a better option, you can move larger amounts of money out into your traditional bank account through Coinbase than you can through other places. I'll give you for instance, Bitstamp, which I love. Okay, I love Bitstamp. Problem for those of us in the U.S. Bitstamp, you cannot get your money out through to my knowledge. Now that they may have changed it by now, but the last time I was working with it, I could not do an ACH from my Bitstamp account into my U.S. bank account, and for that reason I kept doing it through Coinbase. Well, if you're in Europe, you may be able to do that, but otherwise you have to do an international wire transfer from Bitstamp into your U.S. bank account, and I have had issues in the past trying to get U.S. banks to do that and deal with it, so that's an issue. But you need to be thinking about all these issues. In my opinion, right now, the best way. When I'm saying the best way, I'm talking about with large sums of money. If you wanted to move large sums of money, first of all, you got to get approved with these companies to move large sums. But if you want to move large sums of money, and the third part of that, which is you need to have a lot of volume, because let's say you had $100,000 worth of XRP that you wanted to get out of, well, you need to sell that somewhere where there's a high amount of volume. Well, one of the higher volume is Binance, which is a great exchange. Well, and then you got to get approved to move that amount of money out of Binance, because Binance may have U.S. bank accounts where you can do it, but I don't think they do. It may happen soon, but to my knowledge, I would still have to sell my XRP into something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then go back to Coinbase for the best exit into my bank account. And this is in the United States, okay? But you need to be thinking about these things. You need to be getting approved for your higher limits. You need to be thinking, okay, if tomorrow was the day, if tomorrow XRP was at $25, what are you going to do? You need to be thinking about that. That's what smart investors are doing. And trust me, I got caught in December. I was very close to cashing out a little bit in December, but I didn't even think about it. But I had some log jams with the exit strategy, and I've fixed them now, but I didn't have them fixed then. You need to be thinking about this. The last thing that smart investors are doing right now is, and this goes hand in hand with their exit strategy. They're planning. They're creating a planned exit strategy. What is your exit strategy? And this is what smart investors do. Is unless you can just afford to wait for the next 5 or 10 years and you just don't care about it, and that is the following. In my opinion, the smart way to do it is to have a staged plan of how you're going to get out of digital assets. In other words, what is your goal? Is $1 million what your goal is? If $1 million is your goal, do you have is your first stage to take out 50,000 or 100,000? Is that, and put that in your bank account? And if so, in my opinion, you should have 3 or 4 stages. I'm going to take X amount out at when XRP hits $10. I'm going to take X amount out when XRP hits $25. X amount, and then I might let the rest ride until it hits $200. And if it doesn't hit $200, I'm not going to sell. That may be your policy on how you want to handle this. I have my own policy, but I'm not going to go over that here. And also, when you do come out, the tax man will cometh. And you do need to think about that too. You need to find out from your accountant or do your research and find out what is your tax nut going to be, because you need to plan for that. So if you're going to owe 30% in tax, then you need to make sure you set that aside when you do come out, because you don't want to ever get in trouble with the IRS. That's the worst case scenario. So anyway, I think I've covered all this pretty good, and I hope that this helps you. I wanted you to understand when these kind of markets come along, how I think. This is how I think. These are the things I'm thinking about. And I'm going to give you one last thing that I do when things get like this. There have been more than one time when it just made me sick to think that XRP had gone down as low as it had, and there was no reason in the world it should have gone. And there are times when you just need to not look at it and stop staring at the market. So that's normal. I mean, that's a normal emotion. Just turn it off. I mean, I haven't looked at the price all morning today, I don't believe. And part of the reason is when it gets like this, it's not fun. But trust me, the fun times will come. And when they do, I'll be looking, and you will too. So I think this video, I think it was a good time to take a step back and make you get you to think about some things that are just common sense things that you need to be thinking about, because there's nothing about what the market and how it's been the last 24 hours, nothing about that's common sense. Those kind of things don't scare me at all. Okay, well, thank you for listening. I'm the digital asset investor. I am not an investment advisor, so this is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and send this video around. Get your friends to subscribe and hit the like button as well. I will be and go get your Ledger Nano S too, and protect your digital assets. Thanks for listening.